Hello, YouTube, and also still Instagram Live. Welcome to part 2 of phase 1 of your Higher Self Spring Awakening series and multi-dimensional embodiment boot camp for the New Earth Creatrix. We quite literally had our YouTube live transmission go blank the moment I started talking about the spring and Aries season as a blank state, a blank slate to start anew. So we used that opportunity to take a little bio break, eat some fruit. I showed Instagram this like really cute, like little pair of like red panties I'm wearing today to honor Mary Magdalene and the goddess. We talked about adornment. I'm on YouTube live still eating this piece of fruit, this beautiful little clementine, small orange clementine, right? Yeah, clementine, which is such a good name, by the way. And feeling into the way that this spring is calling in finding like the texture of pleasure in potential. And we talked a lot about in part 1 about taking our time and not rushing and just like honoring our needs. We also talked about like a reoccurring theme between like high level, highly creative, high priestess, creatrix archetypes, where there can be like a bypassing of our needs at the basic level because like we're highly fucking brilliant. And like we have this drive to like create magic. So at this time where there's all of this energy that pours in, and there's so much sloshing around, there's this reorientation to our needs at that basic level. We were talking about before the stream went out, like Aries as the beginning, the first sign in the zodiac, the blank slate. But also like I kind of was experiencing Pisces this past like season as the womb and kind of like the gestation period. That's the final cycle before like the Aries birth canal shoots us out. And then we were talking about like being a newborn baby and having needs and like that being a part of the divine process, the divine order. Like if at this time you're feeling called to like find a new rhythm, find a new schedule, you're being brought in touch with your needs and your wants. And also Aries is the I am, it's the identity. Maybe there's some metamorphosis happening around your identity, some emergence happening around that. If there's like if there's a call to like reorient yourself to what you love and filling your life with that every day, your truth and what you feel called to express, you see and how you see things and what you know and the conviction of your knowing, like that is all like Aries baby out of the birth canal, like wailing its way into being, energy of Aries that we are being reshaped through right now. I'm just going to start with a little astrological tone setting. The end of our last or our whole last part 1 of this transmission, we like did some scene setting around the Creatrix codes of metamorphosis. I gave you the code that we're working with. We started talking about recognition. I'm going to circle back, do some astrological tone setting, and then we're going to get back into like our recognition energy, pull some cards, be in our vibe. So if you missed part 1 of this and you're joining us on Instagram, part 1 is already reposted on my YouTube in the devotional drip playlist. And then this will be part 2 of phase 1. And this is like our introduction to the codes today. And we're going to be in this over the next couple of weeks. So we're setting the scene today. We're setting the tone today. And then we're going to be in this for as long as we feel inspired, for as long as I am guided to hold us inside of this. I'm in a moment right now in my work as a coach, as a creatrix, as a priestess, where it's very like one step at a time, like following through with that piece of information and that activation and then moving on to the next thing and not trying to like plan too far ahead. Yeah, it just, you know, there's a radical I keep using the word reorientation and my ears are ringing on that. So that feels like an important one. There's like a radical reorientation and redirection to the now, to the present moment, to the potential that this time of the year always puts us in touch with in the Northern Hemisphere moving into the spring. But in addition, it feels like this is what's up for humanity right now. So let's do a little actually, you know what? Before I go into, where do I have Aries here? Let's actually reorient ourselves to the Creatrix codes. Then I'm going to go into the Aries tone setting. Then we'll go from there. Just to move slow. Say the same thing a million fucking times, which is like one of my favorite parts of all of this. Like, I need to hear the same thing a million times, and I'm guided to say the same things a million times, which yeah, there's something so ultra kind of flowy about that too. So the Creatrix codes of metamorphosis, in the last part of this, I talked about where they came from, how the Creatrix codes arrived. And then I gave you the code itself, which is recognize and alchemize in order to emerge. So we have to recognize what is ending and what is beginning as nutrient dense material for our metamorphosis, for our chrysalis, that fertile energy, so that we can do our alchemy with what's right in front of us. All the paints get used, all the energy gets used, all of the scraps go into the soup stock, all of the compost goes into the garden soil. So we recognize what is ending and what is beginning simultaneously, energy of spring. We recognize what is ending. We recognize what is beginning. We recognize what is right in front of us so that we can, with that fertile energy of recognition, of being in the energy of potential, do our alchemy so that we can do our alchemy in the chrysalis slop, in the womb, in the energy of early spring. I'm looking outside and there's still snow on the ground, and the snow is kind of melting and creating a snow melt, and it's icy and it's slippery, and then the ice is cracking and it's thawing, and then a little bit of water is trickling down. And I was just driving through the state forest the other day. I was just like literally guided off-road to drive through some roads around this mountain that we live on. And I was just like totally enamored with like the snow melt and like the streams and like water moving in places where, you know, if I was to return maybe in July, that water would be like no longer existing as a stream. So there's something so magical about this early spring, the stream of new information, the stream of consciousness that wants to move in, the information that's actually coming from the snow melt. So in the Creatrix codes, we are recognizing and we are alchemizing in order to emerge as a more multidimensional, integrated, higher self-expressed self. In the first part of this, I also talked a lot about Persephone's journey to the underworld and the journey of Inanna and what it is to, like, you know, go through those 6 months of being underground in the winter and how we're transformed, and then the way that emerging is a process. So I recommend catching the first part of this on my YouTube channel if you're interested in any of those codes, any of those themes, any of that story. So from the perspective of the Creatrix, everything can be used as nutrient dense material for your metamorphosis and for your emergence. That means that there is nothing sort of up at the altar of your life right now that's not wanting to be used as a part of your creation. Even the crunchy stuff, even the tender bits, especially the snot, especially the tears, especially the energy of overwhelm. We talked a lot about this in part 1 too. Like, overwhelm is a sign that there's a different way to do it, and that there's a path of, I don't even know, I mean, I guess I like the term path of least resistance, but I think in terms of like a direction for our consciousness, like a path of less resistance. Because when you surrender and meet the change and the transformation that's calling you, and you work with the energy of the seasons, you're not resisting sort of like the natural flow that wants to move through. Earth doesn't care right now if I want to go be outside in a bikini in the sun. The sky is still white and gray, and there's snow still on the ground, and I can see bits and patches of grass, but it just be like this right now. And I think some of the medicine of seasons and metamorphosis and transformation is like embracing what's in front of us and not wishing it away, not wishing it were different. Because when we do that, we're working against the current of life that's wanting to move through. So the Creatrix codes come in to say, first, recognize where you are, orient yourself. I wrote in my journal earlier because I was like, what are some key words for recognize? To recognize is to ground. I did write orient, so no wonder I've been saying orientation so much. To recognize is to ground, it's to orient, it's to organize, it's to purify, it's to let yourself be guided. It's to create sacred space, to be cracked open, which are the two cards that we pulled, that I pulled yesterday when I was channeling our sacred movement practice for the blood, bone, and honey pot. So, from the perspective of the Creatrix, everything can be used as nutrient-dense material for your metamorphosis, for your transformation, for your emergence. That means there's nothing that's alive for you right now that doesn't want to be used as like material in your mural. I literally used glitter glue the other day in this like painting I was making for the cover of my journal, because I love to like start a new journal with the spring, do a little journal blessing, bring in the glitter, bring in the color, which by the way, if you're in the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot and you're joining us tomorrow for the live coven gathering, we're going to do a journal blessing for the spring. I'll show you. I did covers for both of my journals, but here's one that I did for my personal journal. And I literally used like some like glitter base, like, you know what I mean? Like glitter gel, face gel that I would like use like on the side of my eyes as like kind of like a gel medium for my little journal painting. And that felt just so representative in terms of like, we can use whatever we want for whatever we want. Like it's all here to be used as a part of our creation process. So, from the perspective of the Creatrix, everything can be used as nutrient dense material for our metamorphosis. And you need to recognize that power in order to really start working with it at a next level. And let's be honest, it's a daily process of remembering ourselves, right? To be in a process of transformation. It's a daily process of episode something of the drip back in January, Capricorn season, remembering ourselves as the beloved, as the one who's already worthy. Remembering ourselves as a creatrix because we are an expression of source. So the same energy that created the multiverse and the multi-galaxies also created us, and that same stream of energy runs through us. In the last part, we talked about that conscious stream of higher self energy and what that sovereign connection with our higher self is really inviting us to work with in our spiritual autonomy. So, you are a fertile vessel ripe for creating and birthing selves and businesses and babies and books and whatever you desire. The Creatrix recognizes in spirit, energy, and consciousness that they're having a human experience and that this human experience is divine. And there's a lot of different ways to navigate this. And some of the most ancient ways to walk this path are just now reemerging on the planet for the first time in thousands of years, in centuries. And as a new earth creatrix, you are a vessel for this new information to pour into. And by way of your embodiment, by way of your being, you teach yourself and then you teach those around you. And that's the double blessing of being a leader. You get the activation first, then through your embodiment, that activation, that energy emanates out through the mycelial consciousness of the collective. And we're all doing this with each other, right? We're all teachers, we're all leaders. Each of us as children of the divine are being called to like let ourselves get activated that deeply. So the Creatrix recognizes I am divine by design as an infinite expression of source. I am divine by design. So the journey of becoming my higher self is not a journey of becoming like something different, something better, something new. It's actually about becoming more of ourselves. Ascension is a journey deeper inside of the body, not outside of the body. It's not like we're leaving the body to merge with spirit. We are merging with our higher self and spirit through our bodies, through the soma, through the blood, through the bones, through the tissues. And what's going to happen when we're being like imprinted with that much light? Like, what a visual for what's happening right now. The process of ascension. See, it's even like pouring inside of this sacred geometric form, right? Like the journey of like receiving more of that light is again this journey of cracking open. And there is kind of this rock bottoming out that happens at the end of winter and early spring, right? It's like blank slate energy. And again, Aries comes in to sort of mirror that back to us and point us to how that's true. So again, the Creatrix recognizes, and let me emphasize the I am here, because that's also really important with Aries. Aries is like, I am the I am that I am, and fuck anything else, and fuck you, I am. And the consciousness of the newborn baby just like wailing for milk and food and warmth, and like no guilt around that, no shame around that, like divine by design. Like I'm feeling Isis, like divine inheritance to be well taken care of, well tended to, like our birthright to be abundant is how this wants to come through. Our birthright to be abundant. And with that energy of it's my birthright to be abundant. I am the I am that I am. I am a high priestess. I am a creatrix. I am full of potential. I am a new earth leader. I do have ideas. There are things moving through my channel asking to be seated. Like there is a way that I'm being called to move, and there's a way I'm being called to move that operates outside of the models as they've been set. And I'm just seeing each of us as light workers, like receiving these inner activations and like kind of again, like this reorientation to our rhythm, not the way someone else says it needs to go, but like this spring, like what is our rhythm and how do we need to walk, recognizing what do you need? What do you want? Who are you? What do you love? What truth? What are you ready to express? What do you see? What do you believe? And what do you know? Aries is asking us to ask these fundamental questions. In our live coven gathering tomorrow for the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot, I'm going to guide us through those essential questions as a part of our journey, as a part of our journaling, as a part of doing like a little oracle or tarot card spread to support us in greeting the spring. We have 2 new moons in Aries this Aries season, which if that doesn't tell you how things are right now, like there's so much. There's so much. And even with the energy of like having a part 1 and then going off and then starting again, like there's gonna, I feel like there's like this first Aries moon cycle, new moon cycle is like draft 1. Try it out for the next couple of weeks. Try out a bunch of stuff. See what feels good. Be in the chrysalis sovereign experiment, and then take that research and bring it back to the drawing board. Because how true is it that our rush, fast-paced culture, like how fast can you climb to the top? How fast can you get it done? Don't mind me as I reorient my little necktie. This was my great-great-grandmother's scarf. How fast can you get it done? Like in a culture like that, it can be really tender to just be like, and I have the divine birthright to have drafts. And to take my time and to go at my own pace and process. And when I do that, I don't bypass the blessings that are here for me. So the Creatrix recognizes I am spirit, energy, and consciousness having a human experience. I am divine by design and an infinite expression of source. The Creatrix recognizes I am a sovereign being, and there is nothing that I cannot do, be, or have. Period. Queen. The Creatrix recognizes I am worthy of blessings, miracles, and divine support. The Creatrix loves the dance of change, honey. She's like, oh, a changing current? Don't mind if I do get hungry for the transformation that is calling me. The Creatrix meets every single block as a motherfucking alchemist ripe with potential portal. The Creatrix sees each moment and each new experience through a fresh lens and consciousness. The Creatrix is divine solution oriented. And the creatrix moves the way that love tells them to move. There's like a very kind of like obedient, as I flip my collar to the goddess to the back. There's like a very obedient energy of the creatrix and of the high priestess. And I actually was kind of doing some journaling this morning, like, what's the difference between the creatrix archetype and the high priestess archetype? And what came through is the high priestess is the integrated self, the one who holds it down, the one who holds the container for the creatrix to do her or to do their motherfucking divine thing. So the high priestess as the integrated self, it's like this container that we create. It's this we could say it's like a higher self concept and higher self identity. The high priestess archetype is very concerned with our self concept and our identity. So is Aries. So we could say that the high priestess archetype is the container and the structure and the integrated self. That's the self concept that's big enough to hold the like carnal, feral, primal, wild energy that is the creatrix. So I said the high priestess consciousness is a womb consciousness. And then the creatrix consciousness is like the amniotic fluid. It's like the information in the womb. So we're going to kind of be working with the high priestess and creatrix archetypes in that way over the next couple of weeks. And, this is I feel like I heavily work with the creatrix and the high priestess as archetypes, but they've never quite come through like this for me before. I was like, oh, the high priestess as the womb, as the container, as the self, that's big enough to hold like the feral, primal, carnal, uninterested in being put in boxes, wildness that is the creatrix, that is Shakti, goddess, creation, energy. That's pretty damn cool. So the creatrix is all up in their potential. They love the dance of change. Today we're in phase 1. We are in recognize. And again, the code for the creatrix codes of metamorphosis, and you can write this in your journal or write it in the chat or write it in your phone or just let these words soak into you, or maybe you just want to receive what resonates and leave the rest. The creatrix codes of metamorphosis say, I recognize and I alchemize in order to emerge. So I recognize what's in front of me to be used as nutrient-dense material, glitter glue included, base sparkles included, grief included. So much grief being cleared at this time. I have been like in some ecstatic grieving to gratitude expressions in my practice for like months now. But the last couple of weeks, my personal practice has included prioritizing sleep and the kind of sacred movement that lets me just come completely undone. Like completely undone. I've also needed a lot of ORGASMSs, like straight up. I never know what's going to be censored. Sometimes I just spell things out, keep it under wraps, but I've like really needed to like be in an energy of like being wrung out, cleared out over the last couple of weeks. Literally, I was like purging with a stomach bug and I bled for 8 days in order to like hold space for what wants to come in for me right now. So like, how's that up for you? How has there just been like this energy, this force, this divine force of like make space moving through your life? Because Saturn also moved into Pisces and that broke open a lot of stuff and dissolved a lot of stuff and broke a lot of things open. And so there is almost like, we definitely ended a season and began a new season, but I don't know about you. It's almost feeling like when I try to reach for old ways or old ways of doing from like the last astrological cycle, like even from Pisces season, it ain't working like that anymore. Whether it be a point in consciousness I'm trying to orient towards or like some kind of way of doing or being, like there's things we're picking up, right? We're recognizing what's working, but we're also recognizing like, okay, what really wants to be let go right now? And that's us in the creatrix codes, in our sovereignty, like taking some inventory, very spring cleaning energy, right? Like recognizing like what of this energy do I want to work with here? Like what is here for me? What is like, oh, those onion scraps would make a great flavoring in my soup stock, right? Like really not leaving any morsel behind. But then if there is something that you need to just send into the soil, then having some ceremony for that. And that ceremony can be as, in the present moment, as like you're trying to move in one direction and your inner being is trying to say, go this way instead. And you're feeling that resistance. And then what happens? Like a nervous system overload, and that could look like freezing or shutting down or maybe getting hyperactive. Like there's all different kinds of way the nervous system could meet that energy of resistance, right? So inside of that, in that moment of feeling the like that kind of energy, that's the moment we're invited to call on the code of recognize. Like, okay, this can be easier. What can I drop? What can I let go? What can I shift? What sounds like old news? What's no longer working? Where is my potential to create something new, even from all of this old? So I've been calling this a higher self awakening, or it is a higher self awakening, but a higher self spring awakening series for the new Earth Creatrix. It's going to function as a multi-dimensional higher self embodiment boot camp. We'll have sacred movement activations and higher self meditations that go in alignment with these drips in the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot membership, which you can join at the link in my bio or on YouTube at the description below. And what I want to say about the New Earth Creatrix is, again, New Earth is a consciousness. New Earth is a consciousness. It's a consciousness that, like, Gaia, I was writing this earlier too in my journal, like Gaia is getting awake. Gaia is awakening. We're going through this great rebirth and this great awakening. And on top of that, we're in the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. So there's this kind of like extra awakening energy texture right now. And then we're being called to move like water as we rebirth ourselves and systems on the earth. Again, Saturn, systems, structure in Pisces, dissolving, moving, changing. There's a recentering on the spirit of the matter. The spirit at the center of the matter. On the first part of the drip, we were talking about how anything that physically imprints, whether it be like a physical manifestation of a thing or something physically you're moving through in your body, there was first an energetic imprint. And I said this in the first part too, like that also follows in alignment with the laws of manifestation, right? Like you have to first embody the consciousness that is the energetic signature and vibrational match for what it is that you want to create. You almost have to become the version of yourself that's vibrationally aligned with what it is that you want to call in order for that thing to manifest in physical reality. So at this time, as Saturn moved into Pisces, as there's like just so much dissolving happening, so much divine redirection, divine reconstruction and rebirth that's alive right now. There is a recentering on spirit. There is a refocusing on the mother, the feminine, nature, the planet, a rebalancing. Like, where have we, for thousands of years, bypassed our bodies and rest for the sake of upholding systems and structures that are actually out of alignment with our natural rhythm and the cycles of nature? I work with also a lot of companies and CEOs, and anytime I meet the consciousness with one of my clients of like, we're trying to be the biggest or the best, that's an old model. We don't need to do that anymore. We're in this new feminine economy, which is spiralic. It's a circle. We all don't need to be and do everything or be the best, because we're actually here to co-create with each other as our higher selves. No hierarchy, no competition. Village mindset. I think personally, my personal sort of channel on this is that there's going to be like a let go or be dragged, which is literally an ancient proverb, kind of forcing around this in the next very specifically 3 to 7 years as we continue to like move into this new age. And those of us who are receiving this activation now and like listening to this and like hearing the drumbeat and hearing the calling from our own higher selves, from our ancestors, from our own internal rhythms are starting to prepare the way. We're walking the way because that's what leaders do. They walk first. They go first. I'm going to eat a piece of citrus on that one because it's true. It's true. And it's an unapologetic process. Sometimes you got to smell some citrus about it to bring you back in your body, because being a leader is no joke. You will always be guided to lead yourself first. That's the double blessing. That's the great get to, but that's also the huge responsibility. So, some prompts we're going to ask ourselves today with some cards. How is the divine seeking to reshape and guide you? How and where are you being called to surrender, open, and trust the divine process of transformation? Who and what is awakening, growing, and budding within you? What can you recognize as nutrient-dense material to support your rebirth and emergence into this new season? And what do you need? What do you need? Big recognition energies. So, chances are, Earth Angel, New Earth Creatrix, you already know this. Like, I'm speaking into something that you're already aware of. And you're being prompted to do this at a next level of wherever you're being called at this time. And what we're being called to do, the texture and the tone underneath all of this is to be brave, like at the spiritual level. These times are calling for us to be brave at the spiritual level. And if you need like some doses of just like, like I am calling in inspiration as like food for my brain and consciousness, check out the archive of devotional drips on YouTube. There are so many there for you, and you can just like choose the title that resonates for you and get up in that and just let that play in the background while you're going about your day, doing your thing. I'm like really feeling supported by the people I tune into on YouTube or certain podcasts, or sometimes I'll just like pull up my TikTok, and I love listening to my little TikTok readers and psychics. And I just think it can be really helpful to kind of like, in the days where we can't be in the village or can't be with other people, to kind of simulate that, or like, we're not living in the mystery school right now in the sense that we're all waking up and going to the academy every day and doing an hour and a half of movement and then cooking food together and like, whatever. I mean, that sounds amazing and I want to do that. But in the interim of like arriving at a place where we're all kind of respectively each in kind of the next version of our villages, like we are the bridge keepers. So how are you bridging the gap for yourself in your daily life to create more mystery school, to create more ritual, to like really focus upon, because this is another thing for the Creatrix, like to focus upon what you're creating, not what's being deconstructed. The Creatrix knows that the energy of death, birth, rebirth, metamorphosis, like it's all the same energy. So the Creatrix doesn't need to like hyper focus and be in a story because it's distracting and it pulls our energy around what is deconstructing. The Creatrix is focused on what the fuck they're creating. And I'll just say again, if you're craving a container to support you through this next season, DM me Higher Self Spring Awakening. There is a secret higher self embodiment readings session and private mentorship menu right now that I'm doing in the DMs and in emails and texts and voice notes with anyone in the coven who's seeking support for this next part of your journey. Usually I do like a huge private mentorship launch in the spring, and this is when I enroll because I consider this to be the new year. So we're emerging from the winter in the Northern Hemisphere and we're getting ready. So I have a couple of folks who enrolled in private mentorship over the last couple of weeks, and now we're calling in more of our cohort, and we'll just see where that ends up delivering us. And then the Blood Bone and Honey Pot is going to move in alignment with this cohort of people in private mentorship and who are also coming in for one-on-one sessions. And it's all starting to just work and congeal together, which is something I have been calling in for years. I've wanted like a free ministerial offering where I'm just able to like get on and speak. Hello, devotional drip, a membership space, low cost offerings. Our highest tier is under $100 for people to come in and get the codes and be in the practice if they want to. And then space one-on-one to work with people. I offer readings and sessions. And now I have these private mentorship containers that I've been doing like real-time research in, thousands of hours of practicum and research, especially over the last few years in this big metamorphic moment with my clients across the world. And now we're at a moment and a season in Blood, Bone, and Honey where all the wheels are turning at once. So DM me Higher Self Spring Awakening for our little secret spring menu, a little flirty energy for the spring with my dear ears. Okay, so going back to New Earth Creatrix energy. So we're being called to be brave on like a spiritual level. That's what it literally says in my notes. We're being called to be brave on like a spiritual level. And this is the moment on the planet where it's the dig deep. It's the crack open. Again, the only two cards I've pulled so far, and I didn't even pull these today. I pulled these yesterday. The devotional drip these days it's so long. And like sometimes you pull a bunch of cards, sometimes you only pull a couple. But I pulled these yesterday for our movement practice, create sacred space and crack open. And it's that moment. It's the rock bottom, ground the fuck down and receive the light from the Mother Earth herself, who is her own goddess, who is her own divine feminine ascended master creatrix. Mother Earth Gaia is going through her own process. And we as her children are also going through this process. And what's so beautiful about this kind of lineage is like we are children of the earth, but we're also children of the cosmos. And I believe that you're from maybe some galaxy we haven't even heard of yet. We talked about that a lot on part 1 of this transmission. And so as Gaia is being activated, like the part of us that's fully human and of this earth is being activated, but Gaia's activation is coming from like a larger, greater cosmic cycle and activation. So that's also hitting us at the galactic level. One of my clients earlier said they were like experiencing like DNA helix codes coming through when we were in part 1 of this transmission. So go on my YouTube channel. Do not miss that first one. I have like taught the Creatrix codes in like full on retreats and courses. I'm giving this away for free right now. So go take advantage of it. This is like higher self embodiment masterclass, like on some spring awakening magic. So coming back to these Creatrix codes, this moment on the planet, the energy of rock bottoming out, completing something fully. It's like the full exhale that gets out all of the old carbon dioxide before what? You're filled with the in-breath. One of my teachers says our only job is actually to exhale. We receive the inhale. And may we just apply that as a code to our whole lives. Like, oh, as a creatrix, like my only job is to exhale and like receive the next instruction. Fuck yes, I'm here for that. How exciting is that we don't have to muscle and force and push and plan and strategize and know and map it all out. We can just exhale and receive the next breath. So let's go into Aries. Let's go into the energy of Aries. So the drips are timeless, but at the time this is being recorded, we are in Aries season, and Aries is the first sign in the zodiac. It is a cardinal fire sign. Just even feel the word cardinal. It's like, I am the first. The cardinal sign starts the season. So like, for example, Aries is our cardinal fire sign for the spring, and then Cancer will be our cardinal water sign for the summer. Cardinal energy in general is a pretty raw primal force. Like maybe think back to like Capricorn seasons that you've had, or excuse me, Cancer seasons that you've had in the summer. Like Cancer season is like a raw primal force, right? So we're in the fire version of that right now. We are in Aries, cardinal fire sign, raw primal fire force, pointing us to transformation, i.e. why we're doing this multidimensional boot camp metamorphic moment spring awakening series on the devotional drip. And again, this is kicking off like a series of drips. So far I have at least another 3 to 4 drips kind of in this series. And then I'm thinking about hosting a free higher self embodiment masterclass coming up soon where we can work these through with the 7 pillars of higher self-embodiment. And I'll just say my plan right now, and it may change, is to spend a couple weeks in the Creatrix codes. And then I've really been feeling the call to release a new freebie practice of the 7 pillars of higher self-embodiment, do a reorientation to that methodology as well, and then take us through a journey in the Blood, Bone, and Honey pot, where we're working with each pillar every week. And we've done a version of that before, but this time I want to correspond it with some kind of training on the drip around the pillars. So a lot arriving in terms of foundation laying for me at this time. I'll use that as an invitation for like, what are you being invited to lay some foundation around? Like in your cardinal Aries, clean slate energy, like where's your higher self calling you? Where are you being re-inspired? Also, I said this on the first part too, but I just want to say again, like you may also feel really called to move physical energy. And this week in my own practice, like sound has felt really important. And like, yes, to the archetype of the butterfly, I have the little butterfly filter on Instagram. Yes, to the archetype of the butterfly, but also yes, to the archetype of the phoenix and the dragon and the spider and some of these other kind of metamorphic creatures with different textures and tones that are guiding us through this time. And so also the lion, that was one that came through. I've been needing to roar and like move energy out of my mouth in my practice, or like just being in the car, like singing at the top of my lungs, like in the same way movement moves energy, so does sound, 111 on the time. So, and my private clients have been saying this too, like, God, there's just been like so much getting unearthed. Like I'm finding myself really needing to be in a movement practice, really needing to like make sound, move the energy, like create things with my hands, move things with my body. Because if not, like there can almost be this like frozen, and this depends on each of us and kind of what our nervous system patterns are. But what I find a lot for the clients that I work with is there's this frozen kind of overwhelmed state that we as I say we as hypersensitive, highly creative, psychic, neurodivergent, we could call ourselves a million things, people, what I find with that energy of overwhelm is it usually corresponds with a sympathetic activation in the nervous system, a state of freezing. And how interesting that at the beginning of spring, there's a snow melt, right? There's the melt from the winter. And then there's all this information happening at the start of spring, and we can kind of get overwhelmed. And in that overwhelm, we're being invited with the Creatrix codes to recognize it and then alchemize. Where can we soften? Where can we soften? So I know for myself, as someone with a lot of fire placements, fire needs air so that the fire stays lit, but not so much air, not so much ungroundedness, not so much movement that it takes over wildfire. But then when I was writing my notes, I was like, but maybe someone needs a wildfire. And I'm not going to lie, a wildfire has kind of moved through my life in so many ways. I mean, I feel like over and over again, the last couple of years, that's just kind of my like code as like a higher self-embodiment doula and a creatrix, and maybe you resonate with that. But very specifically right now, maybe stuff does need to get burned up. Maybe there is kind of like a sacred controlled burn that needs to happen, which I'm not up on my indigenous farming practices, but I know that that was a part of indigenous farming practice, was like controlled sacred burns, which actually helped with the wildfires. Do your own research on that. I'm not an expert on that, but just that as a metaphor in terms of like sometimes a sacred burn is needed. So maybe you do need a little fire to move through your life right now. And burn it all down. I don't know. I know that that's happened for me in certain parts of my life, and that's that tower energy. And there was a big energy of the tower card coming through with like the last maybe 8 or so super moons that we went through, where they were 16 degrees from their sign, and 16 is corresponds with the high priestess in the major arcana of the tarot, or sorry, with the tower in the major arcana of the tarot. And so there's been that tower like energy, and we've been talking about this on the drip too. You can go back to really our series since like the winter solstice. We've kind of been in that exploration together. So maybe a little wildfire, a little sacred burn is needed. And then, thinking back to Pisces season, like so much was washed away for me in like the end of February, beginning of March. What was washed away for you? How was that part of some kind of like divine rearrangement? And now it's like, okay, Aries, what will you do with me? How would you have me move? How would you warm me at this time? How would you activate me? How would you guide me? How would you direct me? Like there's a little bit of like a no fucks given because I'm so focused on what I'm devoted to, energy of Aries, that I like really love. Marissa said my whole life washed away. No, but fucking facts, dude. That is so, I resonate with that, Marissa. It was 444 on YouTube when I said that. Like, that is so real. And deep bows and yes and valid and cosmic cycles and hello and but it's regrowing. And yes, from all of that energy, because what we're recognizing, all of that recognition, all of that potential energy goes into our alchemy, which will be in on the next episode of The Drip. Like she said, literally everything. Yeah. So, yeah, I want to reorient with like this prayer of like Aries, divine creator, like how would you have us move at this time? And to be in this energy of just being completely devoted to a force of love that is larger than us, that is guiding us, that is moving us, that is stewarding us, that is showing us, that is mentoring us, this force of love that is moving through us and directing us in alignment with the higher timeline that we've been praying for. And sometimes in that process of our prayer and it arriving, like so much deconstruction, divine redirection, and reordering needs to occur, and it ain't comfortable. Again, that's why I wore my butterfly earrings and my lion earrings today, because transformation requires great courage. Great courage. So the journey of higher self embodiment and personal transformation at this time are asking us to be vessels that are willing to be actualized in a way that lets us hold a higher quotient of light in our bodies. And anything that would disrupt that is being ruthlessly ripped out of our reality so that we can hold that quotient of light. I had to like vomit my fucking face off. When I had the stomach bug last week, and when I had that, I was like, I said this on the first part of the drip, I was literally like seeing like I was having a hyper visual psychic experience while I was vomiting for like a whole day. Just like, wow, like seeing karmically what was moving, like literally, like it felt like symbolic of all of this resistance that was inside of me. And so, yeah, I want to say like the purification, and that it really feels like it started with that Virgo supermoon. That was such like a sexy devotional supermoon. Like it just like, and when I say sexy, I also mean like fucking alive, like raw, primal, carnal, like moon. I feel like since then there's just been this big purification energy. And I know it's been like rolling and moving since before then, but really like that felt like a new level of like, okay, now it's time to purify. So because we are being called to hold a higher light quotient in our bodies, to take a path of less resistance, to do things in new ways, to literally seed consciousness on the planet, not even ancient consciousness that was once on the planet that then got intentionally buried, but also intergalactic consciousness that Gaia has not yet received yet. I believe you hold that kind of information, and that's how big you are. And that's what I mean when I call you an earth angel or a light worker. Like you're literally bringing information to this planet that's never been here before. Take it or leave it. I think that's the call. So we're being transformed, we're being reshaped, all the things. Because to embody your higher self is brave, and that bravery doesn't come without this like humble, devoted vulnerability that also simultaneously has you fucking with yourself so deep that if someone projects that, like, who do you think you are to me? Look at that person. She's so about herself. She's a narcissist. You meet all of that repressed, underexpressed energy with your bravery, with your devotion, with your humbleness, like with your offering to creation, to source, to the goddess, and you say like, light workers, witches, magical people, sensitive people, creatives, artists, queer people, neurodivergent people have been projected onto for centuries that they're crazy and too much and too. And now we're saying, fuck you. It's time to be who we are. Aries is helping us with that energy. Fuck you, because I got to get the fuck to it. And not like fuck you violently, just like fuck you. I got to focus on what I'm creating right now. I don't have time for the peanut gallery of people who are underexpressed projecting their pain onto me. How about you? I don't have time for that shit. I've got work to do on this planet. I got a book deal to call in. I got a TED Talk. I got new clients. I don't know about you, but I don't have time for my own judgment and my own projections of shame or the projections of anyone else around me. Should we claim it together this Aries season? Give me an some kind of like growl or roar in the comments, like your version of that, if you fucking feel that. So, to embody your higher self is brave, and that bravery does not come without humble, vulnerable devotion. Focus. The energy of devotion is the energy of tapas, which is the energy of focus. Fire, cardinal sign, Aries, birth canal, moving out of the birth canal. It requires a steadfast focus and a radical fierce softness, which I'm so glad I was channeling that leading up to this part of the drip as well. Divinely guided always, in always, always. Can we claim that together? I am, just a little Aries activation. I am, we can tap the heart, divinely guided in always, always. I am divinely guided in always, always. I am divinely guided in always, always. Tap the little throat. I am divinely guided in always, always. You can tap under the eyes. I'm divinely guided in always, always. You can tap the brow point. Side of the eye, I am divinely guided in always, always. Hi, Paula. You can tap the side of the eyes. I am divinely guided in all ways, always. There's nothing I need to do, be, or become. Fuck the plan. Fuck the projection peanut gallery, both inside of us and outside of us. It's time to be who we are, the energy of Aries. And the call to be a willing vessel. One of my daily prayers right now is, look Gaia, look goddess, look angels, look trees, look animals, look multiverse. I am a willing vessel. Like, speak through me. Like, what needs to be heard? What needs to be spoken? What needs to move? And I think that's the call for all of us as channels, as artists, as creatrixes. It's like and my dad is always reminding me of this too, such a wisdom keeper. Like, it's not about like what's happening. Like, that's never what it's about. But the ego wants to glomp onto like what's happening right now and be all up in what's happening and like the facts. The higher self is like, and the creatrix is like, I recognize, first code of the Creatrix codes of metamorphosis, I recognize what's happening, but from the perspective of my higher self, I recognize it. So I know that it's actually not about what's happening. It's about how I choose to respond and meet that energy. And we'll get into alchemy in the next drip. And that's where the alchemical alchemy practice happens, turning base metals into gold or turning one state of being into another. But right now, we're just in the recognition. We're just in the gathering of information. And I'll just remind those of you who are tuning in from the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot, we have a live coven gathering tomorrow night, 5 to 8 p.m. We're going to be all up in this energy, asking ourselves some essential questions for Aries season, really setting the tone, priming the walls of our nervous system for like what wants to come through in this next season. And then I'll just say again, if you are looking to be supported in a one-on-one container, DM me Higher Self Spring Awakening for our secret spring menu, because I'm offering some secret private little payment plans and some sweet little prices for past clients and people who are in the membership, et cetera, et cetera. So send me a DM if you're looking to do a one-off session or reading, or you're wanting to come into a container, or maybe there's some kind of custom container that you're wanting to come in, especially if we've been working together for a long time. I'm always game to co-create. And that's really coming into my work more and more, especially as I continue to work with higher level clients. It's like, you know what you need. I'm a creatrix. I'm available to like mold this like clay. Like, what do we want to create together and how do you want to be supported? Oh, it's so good to see you too, Paula, risen from that bleed and that stomach bug. And that was a purification activation. And we are back. I also recorded a new sacred movement flow yesterday. So I'll be dropping that after this drip for the blood, bone, and honey pot. And we're going to do a dragon eye heart activation following this drip today. I'm just in like blood, bone, and honey marathon land today. It's like so good. Like the drip with no agenda. Well, I do have kind of an agenda and intention. Like we have our topic, but the drip with no time limit, followed by like recording a couple meditations. That's my idea of a good Saturn day. And that's a Capricorn sun for you. Okay. So let's reorient ourselves here. Our favorite word of this drip. So to be a willing vessel, to say, look, divine, I am a willing vessel for you to move through me. To say, move through me, and then let that energy move through you. Like that is the double blessing of being the creatrix. Like there's something that happens in that willing vessel state. It is an orgasmic Shakti energy that moves through us. Like, it's life force. It's so nutrient dense. Like I can always feel it in myself, especially like in my art practice or when I'm planning things for blood, bone, and honey, or like, especially when I'm in my calendar. Like I can always feel when there's kind of like I can taste death or like stagnancy or like not enough breath on my tongue or in the arrangement. And I can always feel when like more breath, more water, something new wants to come in. But to be in that state of being is to choose that state of consciousness. It's to choose the state of consciousness of the creatrix. And again, the first part of our creatrix code, which is recognize and alchemize in order to emerge, you can apply that to anything in your life, is to recognize like what is here right now as my material. And that sort of surrendered energy, that willing vessel energy of asking the divine to move through us, to guide us, has a reshaping quality, and it is miraculous, and it will reconstruct your entire life, and it will completely change your relationships, and it will redirect your path. And there is kind of like a chaotic spiralic energy that comes with it, that, you know, no matter how many personal development spaces want to sanitize it with some infographics, like she will not be sanitized into a fucking infographic, which is why the devotional drips are like hours long, because the process of transformation can't be sanitized. So this texture of surrender that's required for metamorphosis to take place at the next depth is the calling for the leaders, for the way showers. How are you being called to become more of your true self, more of your higher self, more of your multidimensional self, where you're just like fucking down, like you're riding dirty with the divine, and you're just like, however you would have me move, love, even if you would knock this all the fuck over and have me start again, I will be there as a willing vessel and a soldier and a high priestess and a creatrix ready to begin anew. It's that kind of like dig deep in the belly of the goddess transformation. I'm feeling Sekhmet. I'm feeling a ferocity. I'm feeling like the journey of Persephone going to the underworld. I'm feeling the journey of Inanna going to the underworld. I'm feeling what it is to spend 6 months in the underworld. And I want to call on that energy of the spring equinox. We just spent, if you're in the northern hemisphere, if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're about to go into the fall. But in the northern hemisphere, we just spent 6 months in the fall, and then in the winter, in the cold, and now we're just emerging. Oh my gosh, tenderness is required, and emerging is a process. And it's going to call on all the tears and all the sounds and all the shakes and all the movement and all the newness and all the vulnerability and all the newborn baby consciousness of Aries and all the passion and all the fire and all of it. All of it. Excuse me as I censor myself on Instagram. There we go. Because here's the deal. When we're in the Creatrix codes, we have given up the ego's agenda. I've said this like 7 times on this drip transmission, but the ego is not evil. The ego is not to be demonized. Even when I say things like the ego is meant to be integrated, what I'm talking about in that kind of high priestess ego, being blessed, subconscious mind being integrated into more conscious, higher self-awareness is just that. It's an integration process. Like it's a coming together. It's parts coming together. We need the ego. We need the identity. That is what, debatably separates us from animals. I kind of have a hunch that as Gaia's being sort of activated, like animals are also kind of coming into this space of like having egos and identities and self-concepts. Like as the earth herself is ecstatically awakening, like as her own being, like she's always been that way, but there's like a new level of like communication happening, I feel called to say. So in that process, our ego is being divinely rearranged to align with more of our higher self essence. And if you've ever been in the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot, or you've gone through an activation with me or any of my courses, like a lot of the work we're doing is self-concept and identity work through the body, through ritual, through somatic practice, through spiritual practice, through movement, through breath work, through cards, through divination tools, through art, through adornment, through magic, through alchemy. We're doing a lot of that to align our ego with our higher self identity, our higher self concept, like the identity that your soul had before it came into form. So because we're being called to give up the ego's agenda, all these things that we thought we needed to be or had to be, here's Sochi on that one, we can now ask ourselves, who would God, the divine, my higher self, my wise and well-heeled ancestors, the earth, my lineage, the vulnerable, have me be right now? Free will would have us be a million different things. We're multi-talented as fuck. That is something I do know about the Blood, Bone, and Honey Coven. But who would source have you be? That's aligning free will to divine will. In the same way, the ego's like, here's my timeline. Even if it's like a divinely delivered like project, you know, it's like the ego's like, here's my timeline. The soul and the higher self could give a fuck. They're like, that's great. That's your timeline, ego. But here's what life is doing on life's terms. And now we're, you know, in an age of so much new technology and AI seeping into every corner of our life, artificial intelligence, let's remember what that stands for. Not to demonize it. I don't demonize shit. I love the demons. I'm an archangel who also like fucks with her demon self. You know, I'm not demonizing any of it, but in the energy of balance, like, you know, where there's so much artificial intelligence and it's so a part of our daily rhythm at this point, like, there is a natural intelligence of the creatrix that I think is just, we just benefit from giving our consciousness a bath around, because it's really easy to forget like some of the 101s around transformation and cyclical change. So I've got our prompts here. We're kind of at that point. I want to ask if anyone who's watching live, we got a couple people here on YouTube and on Instagram. Anyone who's here live, do you have a prompt? Do you have a question? Do you have an ask? Would you like us to pull a card around something today? I feel called to just community source some prompts, some prompting, some desires. What do you need? What would feel good? How are you doing? You can even just give me a word or an emoji. I'm gonna straddle my bolster. let the sacrum drip down. You know how we do. And then I do have some prompts that we'll work with in our live coven gathering tomorrow. And I'm going to drop in the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot private Discord. We have a private Discord for the membership, and we have a practice prompts altar channel in the Discord where I've been dropping all of our prompts. Sometimes there's honestly, most of the little drops have 7 prompts per episode of the drip that I've been using for every episode of the drip since the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot started. But recently I've been getting on these drips, and we're 2 hours in, or right now we're actually close to 2.5 hours into this transmission that's been broken up into 2 different parts. And I've really only used the cards that I pulled yesterday to inspire the sacred movement practice, because my channel just has so much information that wants to come in. So we're not going to do all 7 prompts today, but I will provide these prompts to the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot, which is the benefit of being in the membership, starting at the $5 tier. And starting at the $5 tier, you can also join us tomorrow for our live coven gathering, which typically is only available to the highest tier because it functions like a monthly group coaching call. We get together, I give an activation, there's prompts, we share. So we have one tomorrow from 5 to 8. Come when you can, leave when you need to. And I'm opening that up to all tiers. So let's say you were to join the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot today at $5. You would get access to our private Discord, all of our prompts, all the past episodes of the devotional drip are linked in there. We've got all different kinds of altars in the Discord to share what's alive for you. And then you'll be welcomed into the live coven gathering tomorrow to get a little taster and a tester of what we're up to in that space. And I'm getting ready to just hold a whole spring equinox Aries season ceremony for us tomorrow, because we're still riding the energy of the equinox, right? It's a portal. Social media might have you think it's one day, but this is an ancient portal. It's a birth portal. It's a window where we can really claim this metamorphic energy and work with it in alignment with our highest good. And again, I'll just reseed at this time. I know there's so many high priestesses who are being called to their next level of visibility and expression right now. If you need a higher self embodiment doula to come sit by your throne and channel some codes for you, and you want to pull some cards and map out how you can be higher self expressed, throughout this next season, DM me Higher Self Spring Awakening. We got a secret little spring menu popping. And I would love to work with you in that space. So here are some of the prompts that I've been kind of working with, and we're going to choose one of these and we'll pull some cards, and then we'll see where we're at and what's alive. And again, if you have a prompt, if you want me to pull a card around something, please drop in and let me know in the comments, either on YouTube or on Instagram. So again, how this is the energy of the questions we're asking in the code of recognize. And there will be a whole movement activation that corresponds with this. I'm going to record a higher self meditation after this that I'll drop later in the membership, where we're going to get into our dragon heart eye for recognize. And the journey for tomorrow has been arriving, butterfly wings, inner temple space, lots of paint and color. We're going to be there. So if that sounds good, we'll see you in that visualization and activation tomorrow. And I am always weeping on these live coven gatherings around the things that come through for people. And we are in ritual, we are in the circle in real time and space together. And it's so powerful. And there's always a replay. So here's the texture of the questions we're asking. How is the divine seeking to reshape and guide you? Where and how are you being called to surrender, open, and trust the divine process of transformation? And the multi-dimensional process of metamorphosis, because metamorphosis will take you to heaven, earth, and underground to integrate the self. And in the Blood, Bone, and Honey space, when we say metamorphosis, we're talking fully human and fully divine, honey, at that level of transformation. So another prompt we're asking ourselves, who and what is awakening and growing and budding within you? Think of those early spring buds and kind of that energy right before it pops. We're in that energy, at least here in upstate New York. Things haven't started blooming yet. And again, I'm just so grateful for the way that the seasons are a teacher, because my crazy ass that's programmed to go really fast is seeing the buds. And I'm bitch, they didn't even bloom yet. Come on. Let that Gaia rhythm reorient your consciousness. Y'all, that is a daily mystery school training for me. So who and what is awakening, budding, growing inside of you, the seeds, ecstatically awakening, gestating in the soil, in the belly of the mother, which was very like kind of Imbolc midwinter activation. Imbolc actually is a Gaelic word that translates to in the belly of the mother. And it's the midway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So now we just passed that spring equinox portal, but we're still kind of like, we're coming out of the belly of the mother. Like birth is a process, right? Like we're kind of moving through that birth canal. So at this time of kind of moving through the birth canal, who and what is awakening and growing and budding within you? Like that kind of it might feel like inertia, but I'm going to invite you to work with it as divine inspiration that's just asking for more space to be expressed. And it doesn't give a fuck about the way you've been doing things or your old life or what's worked in the past. That energy of inspiration and like creatrix new spring life is like, it wants to move through and rearrange your whole reality. Next prompt, what can you recognize as nutrient-dense material? First code, recognize and alchemize in order to emerge. That's our little ancient mathematician quantum magic embodiment recipe. Recognize and alchemize to emerge. What can you recognize as nutrient-dense material to support your rebirth and emergence into this new season? So what can you, out of all the things that are happening in your life right now, this might be our prompt. I'm feeling this one. What can you recognize as nutrient-dense material? No scraps of vegetables or bones wasted for the broth. Everything goes into the broth bag to be made into broth. All of the food scraps go into the compost bin to go back into the soil. Same template for us. What can you recognize as nutrient-dense material to support your rebirth and your emergence into this next season? What's there for you, just ready for you to stick your little paws in and get all messy and put it on the wall? And just like, I'm feeling the energy of you letting yourself be big, um, be seen. And then I'm also psychically hearing like the importance of rest inside of that. Like think about the chrysalis and the slop and the way that, 111 on our time on YouTube, when the caterpillar is transforming into the butterfly, like first it's got to gather all of its material to create the chrysalis in the first place, right? Like it's got to like go around eating. It gets kind of all fat in its big chrysalis belly, winter hibernation, like it's eating all the leaves, it's gathering its materials, and then it's gathering sticks and all kinds of things, and it's weaving its chrysalis, and it's taking information, it's creating its container. It's creating sacred space to what? Crack open. This is create sacred space, and this card is cracked open. They're the only two cards we've pulled so far. It's the caterpillar is creating sacred space to crack open, because what happens in the chrysalis, and I got real nerdy around this in like my pre-shadow to Saturn return in 2021 when the Creatrix codes came through and I did this whole retreat around it. The organs of the caterpillar in the chrysalis, like go be on some nerdy YouTube videoing after this if you've never like seen that process of chrysalis to butterfly. Its organs literally dissolve into slop, into nothingness, which I've been calling for years in the blood, bone, and honey space, the sovereignty of slop. And we'll talk about that more when we get into phase 2 of the Creatrix codes in our next transmission, which is alchemy. We'll be in that next week. I'm feeling like it's like end of next week that transmission wants to come through. Maybe like Friday or Saturday. Stay tuned for that. But in the sovereignty of slop, we're using all of the material. But before we even can get there to the organs dissolving and the caterpillar becoming mush, and then the wings growing out of these things called liminal discs, sacred space has to be created for the caterpillar to get bigger than it once knew itself. And then we have Aries, like identity, self-concept. So like we have to create the conditions to allow ourselves to be more expressed than we have previously identified as, or had a concept of about ourselves. Right now, self-concept work, identity work, belief work is ripe for the making, for the metamorphosis, for the ascension. So let's ask this prompt. What can this cohort of earth angels recognize as nutrient dense material to support their rebirth and emergence into this new season? So what can we recognize as nutrient dense material? How can we recognize? I want to ask almost like what are we being called to recognize, and like how can we move in alignment with that recognition? I'm really feeling my cosmic dancer deck. And again, if you want a card pulled around something, there's something specific you're moving through in your transformation, I feel like I've got a little bit more juice in me, and I'll pull some collective cards, and then I can pull an individual card that will also speak to the collective if that is feeling of service. I just, it feels so loving when the prompting is like clear and the direction is even clearer. So what can we recognize? How can we recognize? How can we move in this energy of recognition in early spring? Like, how are we being called to move? Reseeding, create sacred space so that we can crack open, so that we can transform. And then what's coming forward? Honor the process and take the lead. So when I'm talking about nutrient dense, it's like what is right here, just begging and asking to be a part of your alchemy, especially things that feel sort of like you're driving up a mountain, but it's icy and your car is sliding backwards. Like, it's exchanging that energy of forcing and pushing for complete surrender to the process, so that I'm really like, I'm getting a visual activation in this moment, so that your higher self, that song, Jesus Take the Wheel, so that your higher self can like take the wheel and start steering it. Like, for me, practicing being a vessel and a channel is to allow like a consciousness that's bigger than my ego to steward and guide my ego. A consciousness that, and this again, this is like putting down the plan of the ego in service of the soul's timing. The soul doesn't give a fuck about the ego's timeline. And I want to say, like, the higher self gives a fuck, but like is still inviting us to like surrender the gripping for what only becomes available through process. Like, we can't become the self that we sense ourselves emerging as. We can't birth the thing that feels like it's ready without like going through the divinity of the process. And the Creatrix codes also really honor like the process as the juice. It's not the destination. It's not even the wings. Like, the wings are an extension of the consciousness that you've grown. We say like in the Blood, Bone, and Honey pot, or in my courses about the Creatrix codes of metamorphosis, I've talked about like recognizing what's ready to be alchemized so that you can emerge with new wings in consciousness. So if there's something you're meeting right now that's not working, part of your awakening right now is recognizing that, honoring that, meeting that, and then taking the lead inside of that to then be in the next part of our Creatrix codes, create something new in the alchemy. So just reseeding, recognize as recognizing what is ending and simultaneously what is beginning as nutrient dense material for your metamorphosis, so that you can do your alchemy in the womb, in the chrysalis, this season of spring, and then emerge. Like, really, the emerging is a process. We started with the spring equinox, but we follow that thread all the way through to the summer solstice. So I just want to like really invite us into that process-oriented energy. We have create sacred space this spring to crack open and be in the process of becoming more of your higher self. And inside of that, take the lead in your sovereignty while also, I want to ask like for some clarifying cards around this recognition. Like what would be helpful to meditate on? Like how, like what would be, and with this take the lead card, I want to ask like how, like in what way, from what consciousness, like who's a friend, who's an ally, what's a code that can help like elevate this meditation, this living, waking, breathing meditation that we're saying yes to? Well, quite literally just pulled the God card from my Magdalene deck. Okay. Who can we be as stewards? Like, I want to say it's all about us and not about us at the same time. Like, it gets to be both. It gets to be all about us and who we're becoming, and really just like I was reading in the Sophia Code, one of my favorite books, earlier this morning about the journey of becoming the inner mother and father to your own inner child. In the journey of parenting yourself, you will come to find that it is your own innocence that knows the exact words and self-loving actions that you need to receive from yourself for healing your deepest wounds. When your inner child is honored with karuna compassion, they will eventually reveal themselves as the phoenix child within you, which is key code 444 of the Sophia Code. This is episode 44 of the devotional drip. The Phoenix child is the invincible embodiment of your innocence that was never harmed in your suffering. Key code 444 is your own angelic nature that arises again and again from the ashes of the past. Big Phoenix energy, big dragon energy, big dragon eye at the center of the heart energy, big seeing beyond the veil energy, big seeing beyond the matrices of form energy, big seeing beyond the programming, big seeing beyond what has been into what could be, big moving from the energy of potential, big moving from the energy of womb and the consciousness of creation, which is kind of fucking chaotic. So that dragon eye at the center of our heart and these creatrix codes can be a still point in the midst of spiralic metamorphosis. And what the Sophia Code is saying to us is that Key 444 is your angelic nature that arises again and again from the ashes of the past with the power to unconditionally love yourself and all others with the wisdom of compassion that has survived within you. When you practice holding yourself with great tenderness, you eventually become whole in your relationship with yourself, which is what this card is pointing to. Like there's a place inside of you that only God, that only the divine, that only your higher self, not even your wise and well-heeled ancestors can reach, can touch. That's your sovereignty. That's your spiritual gift. That's your divine inheritance. That's your great get to. Outside of religion, outside of dogma, outside of pathology, outside of boxes, you have access to God, divine, universe consciousness within you. And it is from that point that we are meeting this activation on our journey, where the waters are rough, the fires are big, the towers are crumbling, and there's so much beauty being revealed amidst all of this purification. Can we anchor the beauty and celebrate the beauty? Oh, we have someone here on Instagram, AJ Rapping, saying nutrient dense to me is my friend's laughter. Ugh, big craving. Yes. I opened the first part of this drip saying like, the last couple of weeks, I've needed to, like, the center of my practice and my life has been resting, making food, connecting with community, moving slow as a fuck. I was sharing earlier that I bled for 8 days and then had a stomach virus and puked my brains out. And then had to just like sleep for 5 days. So I was out for like that Virgo moon came in and then I just got like washed out in the tide. And I'm just so grateful for the way that, like, you know, that kind of reset. Like, I feel like sickness is such a teacher. Like, it's such a reset around, like, rhythm and like reprioritizing what's important. And in the midst of like a lot of movement and things moving really fast and fires and water and crashing and all the things, like there is this gift of reprioritizing what's really important to us. I pulled Hestia, the goddess of sanctuary. No matter where I am home. The most sacred sanctuary is found within me. Like that is the texture right now, right? Like Aries is in that energy too, like being home to ourselves. Like I am at home in my body, I am at home on the planet. And even amidst so much transformation and change, we have Pope Joan here, the pontiff of possibilities. The possibilities are limitless because the soul is limitless. There's also this energy of like potential, right? We've been talking about potential, about possibility, about recognizing, like, even if things at this moment are not where your ego projected them to be 6 months ago around the fall equinox, if you're in the northern hemisphere, how has something more beautiful, even beyond what you could have conceived, arrived? How has something more beautiful than what your ego could have even conceived arrived for you? And this is where we're being invited to let that God, universe, divine energy just move through. And in my practice, it feels really loving to work with the energy of the feminine and the divine mother. If that doesn't resonate for you, please take what resonates and leave the rest. But I love to work with the energy of God, especially coming from a very traumatizing religious background. And I know a lot of my clients have some similar like stories, even if they weren't in the church or in religion in certain ways. Like there was some kind of like attack on their magic from a young age that mirrors like past lives where that's happened many times before. So I know for so many of us, like this God word is really charged. And I know for myself, when anyone is talking about it, even if it's a mentor or a teacher that I really respect, like I always want to be invited to be in my own language. So please be in your own language and your own wisdom around this energy. But this was coming through as a clarifying card around honoring the process and taking the lead at this time in our journey. And it's like it feels like being that vessel, right? Like letting God lead, letting the higher self lead, letting the divine lead one step at a time. You only have to do the next best thing. You don't have to plan it all out. You only have to do the next best thing that's in alignment with what you want to create more of on the planet. Then we have Khadija, the mother of believers, right next to Umoja and Sekhmet and Lalita in the Divine Feminine deck and Diana. Okay, we're going to talk about all of them. And Thekla and Perpetua. Okay. And Saraswati. That's the last one okay, Shekinah. That's the last one. Okay, no. At the bottom, Inanna. Great. We're stopping there. So let's just talk about these qualities of consciousness of the divine feminine, shall we? I'm going to readjust myself on my bolster in alignment with the consciousness of the divine feminine, because we've been channeling for hours, which I love. I feel so good to be back. Okay, let me arrange this creature animal of my body in a way that feels good. And then I'm going to be recording a meditation and sending out some movement after this, because I need to get into some movement. So these are qualities of the divine feminine within you, regardless of gender, regardless of who you are. We all hold this consciousness of creation, of Shakti. We'll talk about Shekinah light, this force that runs through us, that is this impulse to create, okay? And that impulse to create, first of all, it's not polite. Sekhmet, ancient Egyptian goddess of sacred rage. I am pure strength. I honor my voice by giving voice to it. It's not polite. Neither is Aries, which I love, because we could use a whole lot of deconstructing around politeness programming. Yeah. So first of all, transformation's not polite. Birth's not polite. You don't need to be polite. Fuck politeness. Fuck perfection. Fuck being good. Fuck the fear of feeling like you're going to sound or look crazy. We're recognizing that all of that is centuries of trauma and programming that we're cleaning up now on behalf of our liberation. Yes. Second divine feminine consciousness coming through. Khadijah, the mother of believers. I'm spiritually and financially abundant. I provide heaven and earth for myself. I mean, that's so in alignment with that take the lead card. Yeah. It's like, you got it, boo. Like, you literally are God. You are literally an expression of the divine. Let's go. Let's get it. How do you need to be resourced? Are you asking for what you need? Are you tasking your higher self with what you need? Is there something you could ask for? Is there something you could be in some prayerful practice around? Is there a belief around deservingness and worthiness you want to bring into a one-on-one container with me, and we can just work and spiral that out so that you can step more into your power? I don't know. Then we have Umoja, the goddess of all that flows, a very hyper creative goddess energy of the Yoruba region in Africa. And she had, I think, 16 children, something like that. So there's mermaid goddess, mermaid mother, like very protective, like sort of protecting all of the children. Like, you are the mother to all of the parts of you. You are the father, you are the parent to all parts of you, getting loved into liberation. We'll talk about Inanna and her journey. You are the mother and father and parent to all parts of you that just went to the underworld and are coming back and emerging in the spring, and all parts of you that are remembering that they are the higher self. You're the mother and father and parent to all of your projects. You are this protective force for yourself. You can be. She says, I am an ocean of creative energy, and I give birth to what exists within me. Birth is messy. It's not polite. It's not sanitized. Just start. Just start and see what happens. I feel like that's been coming through on the drip a lot for anyone who's also in kind of like a launch mode or birthing mode, whether it be of yourself or projects or both simultaneously. Like, there's like a just start texture. And remember, in the process, Lalita, the red goddess, that playfulness is a spiritual power. Laughter leads us back to the light. We had AJ rapping saying, nutrient dense to me is my friend's laughter. Yes. Yes. I had to like really resource myself with a lot of community, like navigating this bleed and this sickness, and like just being like in the company, in the flesh, in like real time with people who really like water my garden and like mirror back to me an empowered whole version of myself, because they honor me as a whole multidimensional being. Get you some coven like that. If you need some coven like that, come into the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot. If you need some more focused, devoted attention, come into a one-on-one container with me. I offer readings and one-on-one one-off sessions, and all kinds of containers, whether it be session containers and bundles or private mentorship containers that I, again, have been researching and cultivating for years, and working specifically with highly creative, highly sensitive, neurodivergent, magical as fuck beings who have very specifically also survived like some trauma and some stuff, and are at a point in their journey where they're really ready to like meet that love, that integrate and rise in a way that's playful and fierce simultaneously. If I could just dust my own shoulders off, I would say I really have an intention to be a teacher that is playful and fierce simultaneously, because ultimately, like, I think that is like the energy of the mother and the feminine. Like, it's so playful, but it's also fierce, just like these cards are showing us. Like, there's a fierceness. There's a fierceness to these presences. And then there's also this playfulness. Look at the butterflies. Choo-choo. Then we have this other aspect of the divine feminine consciousness within us that's wanting to help activate the creatrix. I love how this is coming through. Diana, queen of the wilderness. We were talking about Diana on the Virgo full moon transmission. We talked a lot about Diana on actually the last episode of the devotional drip. Queen of the wilderness, the language of the natural world is a frequency of love, and this is my mother tongue. A lot of times, even if I don't say it out loud, I'm in a constant prayer of like, higher self, divine mother, please place the words on my tongue. The tongue is a sword. The tongue is a wand. The tongue is its own little creatrix tool. Our throat chakras are the temple space where we translate vibration into the symbolic structure of words. The tongue is helping the enunciation of that. It's part of the spell. So when I was vomiting and I had the stomach bug, it literally felt like I was like also vomiting up like blocked throat chakra energy. And like times I had like turned the sword of my tongue against myself, like spoken words against myself. Like it literally, when I was vomiting, it felt like I was like, there was like swords being pulled out of my mouth and my throat. And I was just like from the guts, literally creating space. Because also physiologically, it's true that there's a gut brain axis connected via the vagus nerve, which is a huge player in nervous system regulation. So our throat, our tongue, our mouth is also a part of that digestion processing process. And so we can literally make ourselves sick by the things that we speak out about ourselves, other people, and the world. Now, that's not to say that we can't also have a little bit of a sharp tongue from time to time, because I'm also allergic to purity culture and like any sort of like good programming. Like I have to be good. We need to speak what the fuck needs to be spoken. And sometimes that's going to look like some sacred rage. But specifically, this card is inviting me to be like, anything you've been speaking against yourself and against your own creations, let that get purified now. No more talking shit about ourselves just because that's the way that culturally people trauma bond. Like almost like it's like the Olympics for like who can talk the most shit about themselves. Like I'm seeing that scene in Mean Girls when they're picking themselves apart. Like that's so a part of the programming. So no more of that. We're not doing that shit anymore. We're speaking blessings onto ourselves and onto each other. And then we're speaking the motherfucking, I was going to say bitch ass truth when it needs to be spoken. I love the energy of Sekhmet. I also recently learned that I have Sekhmet rising in my chart from my friend Megan, who is like my master astrology mentor, priestess, ancient sister, who is helping me relearn and remember this ancient math. And she was like, girl, you literally have Sekhmet rising in your chart. No wonder on the drip you're like, it's true. And if you ever worked with me in a container, I may appear sweet and docile, which I am. I am sweet, but I also have a very spicy and salty side, and I really fucking go there, and I'm really willing to go there. And Sekhmet is one of my main guides, and also that energy of Sekhmet and kind of those more like ruthless dark goddesses have been huge teachers and initiators for me. The first goddess to ever show up for me was Kali Ma. And it came through at a time when I was going through a huge autoimmune like spiral, and like everything was up, like all of my different things that I navigate were up at the same time. And it was deep. It was metamorphic. It was humbling. It brought me to my knees, like in my awakening, in a way that I had prayed for, in a way that plugged me in so deep to my higher self and the goddess that I just like never turned away again. And I think that's also something about that rock bottoming energy that's so real, this cracked open card. Like there's a divinity to the process of being dragged. There's a divinity to the process of being dragged and letting that happen. Letting it being taken, surrendering it, giving it up, offering, right? There's a divine intelligence inside of that. There's a reshaping that happens. Like I feel like my journey has like really softened my edges, softened my focus. It has changed the way that I speak. Like this Diana card, like being in the journey of personal transformation, metamorphosis, higher self embodiment has literally given me a whole new language to speak from, to live from. And language is so important, right? It's like it is one of like the most ancient art forms alongside music and dance is language. So how are you speaking? How are you being? How are you moving? This Divine Feminine Ascended Master card is just reminding you of the power of your own tongue and your capacity to speak blessings over yourself and your life. And that every word you speak is a spell. Next card coming forward, Thekla. So these are aspects of our divine feminine consciousness that's wanting to activate within each of us, or we could say aspects of our higher self consciousness if divine feminine doesn't resonate for you. These are aspects of our higher self and divine feminine consciousness that are wanting to activate at this time to help us move through this early spring energy, or whenever you're catching this drip. Because again, the drip is timeless. So maybe you're catching this at a point in your life when it's kind of feeling like a spring awakening, but it's not necessarily the spring. Totally valid. Thekla coming through as her thing says that, yeah, the prophetess of true power. So it's like this prophet energy. She's like, I call my energy back from all time and space. I am my own. I'm not going to go through her whole story right now, but it involves a version of being burned at the stake, except she's in an arena with a bunch of wild animals that are being told to attack her because of the way that she has, and we'll just be in more like metaphoric energy of this story right now to apply it to this drip. She is in this moment of really rising and sharing her voice and her thoughts and her unique codes that she's meant to bring here to the planet, and because of that she's put under attack. And when all of the wild animals are coming after her, right here you can see there's a lion here. As the animals are sent to attack her, she's holding up ancient mudras and she's like connecting with her higher self, like divine light essence. And as she does, those creatures, which are known as wild beasts, bow at her fucking feet and lick them, bitch. The wild animals bow at her feet and lick them. So we can use that as a metaphor, whether it's something coming externally at us or inside of us, we're facing a lot of our own programming. That wild beast energy, we are Diana. We are Sekhmet. It is here to bow to us. We are Thekla. We can hold up that mudra. We can connect to our light. We can recognize that this is a moment to rise in our power and make a new choice. If Thekla got lost in her fear story, she wouldn't have held up that motherfucking mudra and that lion would have eaten her ass. And then she would have gone into the lion's belly and maybe come back and whatever. And that's fine too. But this is just an invitation for us to like invite the wild beasts to bow at our motherfucking feet and lick them. And Aries loves a little bit of that energy too, right? Not hiding from that wild, primal, carnal version of the Creatrix. The Creatrix is not polite. She doesn't follow the rules. They don't give a fuck. But what they do care about, Perpetua, is being authentic. And actually, authenticity, I identified this with one of my coaches a couple years ago, is my highest value. Authenticity is my highest value. All the rest can take a back seat to authenticity. How about you? Perpetua is saying, the saint of authenticity, I am my authentic self in all circumstances. Let me tell you what, when I was vomiting and clearing stuff from my throat chakra, there's some things, honey, that I haven't said over the last couple of years that I really needed to say, and that cleared out of my throat. And of course, I'm mindful when I'm here on these social media platforms that at this point, it's not a conspiracy that they're censored. They just are. It is what it is. They're owned by billionaire tech companies, and we just work with them the way that we work with them, and we use them as tools, and it's all a spectrum, and it's all good. I don't even want to give any of the negativity my energy. But what I do want to say is, like, again, when I just went through this purging ceremony and bled for 8 days and then got this stomach bug and was just like totally on the couch and like I just could not, like, I got so dehydrated, my feet started cramping and I couldn't walk, which was triggering for some of my autoimmune stuff and my joint pain. Like, I was just fucking in it. And inside of that, what I was reminded is just like that the divine process of ascension is kind of brutal. and it's not neat and tidy. And even if we think we've gotten away with something, the good news and just the truth is that in my experience of the divine, we get away with nothing. And so, like, when I was in the stomach bug mode and vomiting things up, I could also feel like things that I've been wanting to say and ways I've been blocking myself from saying things. And, that's a journey for all of us, I believe, as creatrixes and high priestesses and magical people and channels. Like, the process of unblocking our throats and our third eyes, and frankly, not even that they're blocked. I want to say the process of like wiping off all of like the centuries of programming and fear and shame off of those spaces and places, like, is just that. It's a process. And sometimes you're going to vomit, literally or metaphorically. And inside of that, the next card coming forward is Saraswati, the Hindu goddess of self-knowledge. Like, it's just to know yourself as your higher self. Like, when I was vomiting, I was seeing things going into the toilet, and then I was literally like aware in that moment of the way that this was part of a throat chakra blockage that I was clearing. Like, yeah, sure, it's a stomach bug that I picked up from my friend's baby that I was holding, who was also sick and vomiting because I was trying to help her, because let's be in the village together. Hello. And also, like, it's never just that. Just like we were talking about earlier, like, the physical imprint is always preceded by an energetic imprint. And I really was like going hard for weeks leading up to getting sick, and I needed to fucking rest. Like, I slept so much. And even before I got sick, like, I was really, really needing like a lot of sleep. And so there was like a divine reorientation I was able to receive instead of some victim fucking story, because I was in my self-knowledge, right? And this is not like a comfy, cozy place to be, but it is courageous. And it will have you fucking with yourself in the way that actually has you creating containers for your Shekinah, divine feminine light to shine. Shekinah, or Shekinah, is known as the presence of the divine feminine. At the center of everything, there is light, and I am that light, says Shekinah, says Shekinah, says the divine feminine. And this is what Anana also knows. Of course, I would pull Anana, like with this spring equinox energy. Anana already knows this. She already knows that she's going to go to the underworld in order to retrieve her twin sister self, Aresh Kagal, the high priestess, to become more of her higher self, to embody more of this light. We've said quite a few times today on the drip, like, we are at this time, we are being reshaped to be bigger conduits for a higher quotient of light. If I was just going to summarize the whole thing, it's that. So in the process of that alchemy, of that multi-galactic alchemy from the dragon eye at the center of your heart, what are you being called to recognize? Again, we're recognizing what's ending and beginning as a part of all of this material for what we're growing. And then next week, we're going to be in the energy of alchemy. And we're going to really go into that. And I'm feeling like, that was quite a few divine feminine ascended masters and some powerful codes for this drip. I want to just reseed and say, like, overall theme, this is a time of creating sacred space for ourselves to be cracked open, to embody more light, and to be sanctuaries for ourselves to transform. And that is phase 1, honey, of the Creatrix codes of metamorphosis. I will see you next week for phase 2. Again, this is part of our Higher Self Spring Awakening series. It is our multidimensional embodiment bootcamp for the New Earth Creatrix. Today, we had a 2-parter for phase 1. And if you'd like to access the corresponding Higher Self meditation and movement practice, you can join us in the Blood, Bone, and Honey Pot. And again, I'll just say one more time, we have a live coven gathering tomorrow where I'll be guiding everyone everyone through a higher self activation and self initiation. We'll be moving through some prompts. We'll pull cards together, and it functions as a group coaching call meets sacred sharing circle. So if you're going to join us for that, I will see you there. I'm going to go record a meditation for the membership, and then look out for some recordings dropping this afternoon. If you're in the Blood, Bone, and Honey pot, you can join us starting at the $5 tier at the link in my bio. And you will immediately get access to our living practice library, an archive of higher self meditations and sacred movement activations ranging from mind body centering, yoga flows to yoga dance to all kinds of restorative classes. And I also have been recording all of our live coven gatherings. So those are recorded in the archive as well. And then I'll also say we have a private coven Discord as a space to connect between activations and classes. And there's a whole bunch of prompts there that you could go work with following this drip. So that is my piece for today. I am wishing you peace. That's my word for spring. My word for winter was refinement. I feel like that's going to keep being my word for this year. And now peace is coming in so big. Loved it. Thanks, beautiful star. Oh, thank you, beautiful star. Thank you for that love. Oh, I just felt that in my belly. Thank you. So much love. So much love. You're doing great. Take what resonates, leave the rest. I am a guide. I am a higher self embodiment doula. You are the authority. You are the author. Go out and author your life, Creatrix. And remember that there's part 1 of this transmission as well on the YouTube channel. You can find the whole archive of devotional drips on the Blood, Bone, and Honey YouTube in our devotional drip playlist. Our live transmissions don't show up if you click videos. It'll only show you devotional drips that have been pre-recorded and uploaded. So you'll want to go to the playlist to access all of them. And I will be sending out a newsletter this week, so you can join my newsletter at the link in bio. And I'm so excited for this new season of creation. You can email me or DM me with a love note that says Higher Self Spring Awakening if you're interested in taking advantage of some of our special spring pricing. I have a little secret spring menu that I may sort of reveal as we get deeper into our Higher Self Spring Awakening series. But for now, I'm just filling spots for the spring behind the scenes because there's enough interest that we're kind of doing it the ancient and the old way right now. And then I may open up the portal for some public enrollment as well. So if you're catching this and you're hearing this, DM me Higher Self Spring Awakening. I will get you a little menu of our secret menu of spring offerings. And I'm so looking forward to those of you who are starting your private mentorship containers. I've got a couple of folks starting in May, and I have some space in the cohort for high-level one-on-one private mentorship, which is weekly. Every week we are in it together. I have a couple of different packages right now. If you want to get an idea of what that looks like, you can go to my website and click the coaching tab. I'm currently updating all of that right now, and the website's going through its own metamorphosis. But you can see at least kind of, what is in the realm of offering. And then I have my secret little spring menu with some special pricing and some payment plans, things like that, to support us in emerging into this new season. So holla at your girl. It's angel numbers galore. We're investing with angel numbers this spring. We love it. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Drip. And I'll let you know when it's happening. I'm feeling like Venus Day or Saturn Day of next week. So we'll see how she pours in. So much love. Many blessings. Namaste. I'll say bye to YouTube first, and then we'll say bye on Instagram. Bye, Earth Angels.